Hello, everyone. I hope everyone can see me and hear me. Hello, hello. Welcome to this week's forum on Israel, Africa, and Black America. I am your host, Joshua Washington. I am not joined by my lovely co-host this evening, Ms. Olga Mishwe Washington, our Speakers Bureau Chief and board member. Um, we're both actually traveling. I'm coming to you live from New York, and she is coming, or she would have been coming to you live from Texas. She's doing some very important work. And so I'll be with you. We were both here in the New Jersey area earlier yesterday for an amazing event that I'll talk about in just a moment. But I hope everyone is doing well. It's good to see you all. Come in, ping your friends, tell people to come in here. We got a lot of stuff to talk about today. First of all, visit our website. If this is your first time checking this out, and you don't know who IPSI is, who the heck is this group, why am I here, you can look up the Institute for Black Solidarity with Israel at ibsi.org. I am the executive director of the Institute for Black Solidarity with Israel, along with our CEO and founder, Pastor Dumisani Washington. And of course, I mentioned to you Olga as well, who is our Speakers Bureau Chief and on our board. And she's also my wife. We had our first dual event together today and yesterday in New Jersey. It was a lot of fun. Also, if this is your first time checking us out, you can also go to our Substack, ibsi.substack.com, and you can check out our articles, our podcasts. We have premium content. Our CEO actually has been writing quite a bit lately. And so we'll be talking about his latest article, but he's written two this week that you can check out as well. So go to ibsi.substack.com and you can become a paid subscriber and support IPSI in that way. Speaking of paid subscriber, or speaking of paid, I should say, you can also become a legacy builder with IPSI. A legacy builder is someone who gives a monthly amount to IPSI, something small or large, however, whatever you can do, but it is whatever you are able to give. If you like the work that we do and you support the work, and you want to support us in our work, then you can go to ibsi.org/donate, and you can either become a legacy builder and give monthly, or you can give a one-time donation. But anything that you are able to do is greatly appreciated and extremely helpful at the Institute for Black Solidarity with Israel. Lastly, you can visit our merch store. If you go to ibsi.org, you can check out all the stuff we have. We have mugs, we have T-shirts, we have water bottles, we have Zionism in the Black Church, which is our CEO's book. We have journals, all that kinds of stuff. We have a beautiful journal, as you can see right there. Purchase that. You can support IPSI and have something to show for it. That is ibsi.org. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, let's get one quick announcement, I should say. So as I mentioned yesterday, Olga and I were at the Federation of Northern New Jersey for a beautiful event where we were both speaking. It was our first speaking event together. We've done events together, but usually she speaks and I do music or something like that. But this is our first time speaking together. That picture, that was the pre-event lunch that we had where we got to talk with several community leaders in the northern New Jersey area, both Jewish and non-Jewish. Talked about some of the challenges. As some of you might know, we've done some reporting in the past years on different parts of New Jersey. I think we talked about the Black Hebrew Israelites in northern New Jersey, that bomb threat that happened. If you remember, a deli was shot up. If you guys remember that story, the people who did it were aiming for a Jewish school, but the doors were locked, and that they're locked for those reasons. They shot up a deli. There's a pipe bomb found in the van. That was a few years ago. That was just a couple years ago, I should say. There was a fortunately former now, leader of the NAACP chapter in that area of New Jersey as well. And I always pronounce the city's name wrong. Passaic, Passaic, I think. I can't remember. But in that area, and he was just posting all kinds of Nation of Islam style Jew hatred, straight up Nazi style lies about Jews and all that stuff from the NAACP page in New Jersey. We called that out as well. It's intense. It's intense up there. And so we were talking with some of the leaders about their efforts. They were sharing with us their efforts to bring people together. There's this amazing lady named Cheryl Hall, and she does incredible work in New Jersey. She's an older Black lady who is just such a pillar, and she is kind of like a glue that brings people together, along with a good friend of hers, Yael, who is an Orthodox Jew, and the two of them do incredible things. And so we're actually going to be following up with them and meeting with them to talk more about how we can help them. One of the things that Cheryl talked with us about is just some of the intense vitriol that she receives from trying to build bridges with the Jewish community in New Jersey, specifically in trying to stand with the Jewish community, especially after October 7th. There's a lot of pushback. There's a lot of Islamist activity in the Jersey area. It's heavier, even than in some of the other cities that we've been to. But because of that, there's an openness, and so we're going to be doing more. So we're excited about the possibilities and the potential for that. And we want to say thank you. Thank you to the Federation of Northern New Jersey for having us on behalf of the Institute for Black Solidarity with Israel. We had an amazing time. And we're honored that you would have us in your space to speak with you. I think last night's conversation was really refreshing for us as well. So thank you. Now we are going to get into things. We have some more. By the way, we have some more announcements, but there's some stuff that's going on that in 2025 that we're still planning for. So we'll be announcing those soon. But there definitely are a lot more things going on in terms of what we're doing for 2025, including our pastors events across the country. We're planning those, stuff with our IPSI ambassadors, trips to Israel, and then other community work that we will be doing. Some of that actually is in progress right now because of the events that we've just had, including the one yesterday. So we're excited. There's a lot going on, and we're excited for the partnership that we will have. Or that we have, and then we'll be able to work with over the years to come. All right, you guys, let's get right into it. So we've all, I think at this point, if you haven't, then let me give you a little update. We've all been following what's been going on in Amsterdam, okay, the Netherlands. There was a soccer game and between an Israeli soccer team and another soccer team in Amsterdam. And after the game, there was a pogrom. I mean, that's really what it was. It was an anti-Jewish pogrom. At least 50 Arabs were waiting outside for the Jews who were coming out, for the Israelis, with knives, with clubs. They were beating them up. And kind of like, it was like a mini October 7th in that they filmed themselves doing it. It wasn't a bystander filming. They filmed themselves terrorizing and beating, knocking unconscious, stomping on, kicking while they were unconscious Jewish kids. Okay, that's what happened in Amsterdam. The Dutch police did absolutely nothing. And I'll put a pin in that because I'm gonna come back to that in a second. Dutch police did nothing for at least an hour and a half. They just kind of stood idly by and watched it happen. And what happened from there was very little reporting about it. And then all of a sudden, there was this narrative that was crafted that the reason why the Israelis, the Jews were being attacked was because the Israelis there were chanting anti-Arab stuff. They were chanting stuff about Gaza. They were saying there are no schools in Gaza because there are no kids there. And they were saying, all this other kind of stuff, right? This very anti-Arab stuff. And so they were being hooligans. And so that's why everything broke out. And then the narrative was, yes, they were also doing that. And they ripped down a Palestinian flag that was hanging up. And then the narrative was they beat up a couple of taxi drivers and they were terrorizing Arabs for hours beforehand. And what we caught on camera was our response. And then the narratives kept growing to this was the Jews' fault. Now, I was hoping to have Olga on because I wanted to talk with her about soccer, particularly because she comes from a soccer culture. She's South African, and her brother is a great soccer player. Her father, Dr. Reverend Kenneth Mishwe, who's a South African Parliament member, before he got deep into his calling as a pastor, he was a very, very good soccer player. He loves soccer. So it's just a soccer family, soccer culture, and everything. I want to talk to her about that. But I will say this, a couple things. Soccer hooliganism is a real thing. Okay, meaning at soccer games, and it makes sense to me because when you think about just team rivalries in general, it's intense, right? I'm originally from California, not from Oakland, but close by. I'm wearing this Oakland shirt that I got when I played a festival in Oakland. It's great. It was it's Land of Oaks down here in Hebrew, and then it's kind of like Hebrew type font on top. But I'm close by, right? I'm not too far away. Stockton, California is where I'm originally from, and I'm a Bay Area team kind of guy, right? When it comes to football, I'm a 49ers fan. 49ers and the Raiders, there's always beef between us. When it comes to baseball, I'm a Giants fan. San Francisco Giants, and Los Angeles Dodgers. Beef, like there is beef. USDA 100% organic beef between San Francisco Giants and the LA Dodgers. I'm a basketball fan. In basketball, I'm a Sacramento Kings fan. I did not jump ship to the Warriors. I like the Warriors, but I'm a Sacramento Kings fan at heart. Sacramento Kings and the LA Lakers, in terms of this is beef, right? So there's been some bitter stuff, right? When the Kings lost the championship back in, I think it was 2006 or something like that. No, 2002, 3. Yeah, I was devastated. I was, oh man, when the Giants lost the World Series to the Diamondbacks, I think it was Game 7. Oh man, I was so upset. And you have this animosity, but that's what happens. Now imagine soccer teams where it's country versus country, right? Imagine if it's an Australian team versus the British team. Well, there's like a history between the countries, right? There's a beef that goes beyond sports. And so what you have are people on both sides of those things who say very biting, very pointed things against not just the other team, but the other people in general. You have chance, um, you know, let's say it's an African team versus a French team. There's colonization there. So we're not just going to make up these chants against the French team. We're going to talk some crap about the French because our people as a whole have issues with the French. So all that said, what happened in terms of what was chanted and stuff wasn't outside of the norm of what we would call soccer hooliganism, right? That's what happens. Now, here's the thing though. That still does not excuse what happened after. What happened afterwards was not a squabble between the two people. What happened afterwards was that, and again, this is how crazy our society is. Oh my goodness, these people filmed themselves doing it, and we still can't decide whether or not what happened. They filmed themselves not just beating the crap out of Jews, but finding they were beating people up who weren't even a part of it. They filmed themselves. They filmed themselves beating up a Ukrainian man who was saying, I'm not Jewish, I'm not Jewish, I'm not Jewish. And they beat him up anyway and mocked him and laughed at him while they beat him up. As a matter of fact, when I posted that on Instagram, some troll commented in quotes, I'm not Jewish, I'm not Jewish. And he said, ha, 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 ha. They thought it was funny that he was begging them to leave him alone because he was not a part of what was going on. They beat him up anyway. They were accosting random people on the street and forced them to show them their passports. So they're regular, what do you call those people? Netherlands people just walking down the street, and they would say, hey, kid, show me your passport. And then they were like, oh, what does that have to do with your rivalry with this other team? It doesn't. You were using that as an excuse to beat up Jews. You were using it as an excuse to beat up a bunch of Jews. That's what you were doing. And what happened there is happening now in Belgium. Jews were just being followed. Again, the videos that we have on social media are being taken by Arabs who are doing it. In Antwerp, the police detained 5 youths, and see how they don't even say they're 5 Arab youths, again, Arab migrants, that intended to commit acts of violence against Jews. They filmed themselves. They filmed themselves going after the Jews, right? And posted it on social media, chasing them through a tunnel, knocking them down. They filmed it. That's happening in Belgium. I just texted a friend of mine because I have friends all over the place, and my friend, she's Jewish. She lives in the UK. Just checking in because I know she has friends all over Europe. She said, no, she had a friend, one of her really close friends. That friend's friend was missing after Amsterdam. He was one of the ones that was taken. Everyone's been recovered. Everyone's fine. But she told me that there's a soccer game happening I'm just checking out. She was telling me in Paris. Yeah, there's a soccer game coming up soon. They have 4,000 police who will be at the France-Israel football match. And she says apparently the French president is going to show up to attend to show support. But yes, people are suspecting that there might be something that goes down in France as well, which would not be surprising because Paris has basically turned into another little mini Arab country. Now, not only did the Dutch police not do anything for an hour and a half, reports have come out now, and we have evidence now, that they were warned that the Israeli government was tipped off that there is stuff going down. And because when you have an Israeli team going to another country, especially if that country has had a history of doing stuff to Jews, Amsterdam was a hotspot in 2021 for attacking Jews. Belgium was a hotspot in 2021. You have to kind of you got to be on your P's and Q's. So the Israeli government communicated with the Dutch police and said, there might be something going down tonight. You might want to do something about this. They were ignored. The Dutch police didn't do anything. And then when it was happening in front of them, they didn't do anything. So that's what's going on. Now it's happening in Belgium. Now they're suspecting it may happen in France. And you know what? It may very well happen in different places here. I think the only reason why we haven't heard about more happening here in the States lately is because I think just because there aren't like an Israeli, we're not like a soccer team. We're not like a soccer country, not really. It's not an Israeli team coming out here to play. But that is what's happening. And then, when you call attention to this and bring some things to light, then you have these yahoos who they have nothing to say. So all they do is use all the buzzwords they can use. Oh, genocide and apartheid, sellout, da 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 da. But they're not actually wrestling with what's actually been said because they don't care. Again, because they're foaming at the mouth. It's almost like this demonic kind of thing they have. They hate Jews. So this was a perfect excuse for them to say, oh, they deserved it. Even if all the things they said, right, Jews, well, we know, okay, there's a Palestinian flag that was pulled down and stuff. Fine. Like we've seen this type of behavior at lots of sports games. Even if that made you angry, again, getting into a fight with the person next to you for doing something that really offended you is one thing. Searching around for people that look like that person, forcing them to show you their identification, beating people up who aren't even a part of it, that shows your unhingedness. You are so unhinged. How unhinged do you have to be? How unhinged do I have to be? If one person wrecks my car on purpose and I see that person tries to run away and I tackle that person happens to be Indian, and then I beat that person up, and then I just go around for the next few blocks looking for Indians to beat up. It seems like I just found my perfect excuse to channel my hatred for Indians on other people using this guy's. He's just a scapegoat for what I want to do. It's just even if what they said was true, it's still not an excuse for what happened in Amsterdam. On top of the fact that much of what they said was not true. So that's what happened, and that is what is happening in Europe right now. It is not 1939, it's 2024, and there are pogroms against Jews in Europe. So that's what happened right now. And we want to you guys, we have to call it out. We got to call it out always, always, always. Um, yeah. So that's what's going on, guys. So we're praying for our Jewish brothers and sisters. We're happy that there's not like some sort of long-term hostage situation like there is in Gaza right now with the Israeli hostages, that everyone was found and everything was good. But Hamas said they would do October 7th over and over again until it was destroyed. When there were anti-Israel protests in New York a few months ago, people were writing Hamas is here on different parts of New York City. They're not lying, you guys. People are trying to model October 7th in other parts of the world. Okay, so that's that. I also want to pivot and talk about Iran. Now, there's an old video, although I don't think I linked it. I forgot to link it. So sorry, you won't be able to see the video. But you can see it, I think, if you go to our Substack, because our CEO and founder, this is his latest Substack article. As a matter of fact, producer, I'm just going to do this here. You don't have, if you can show it, just let me know. But if you can't, then that's fine too. But I'm just going to, if not, then if you could just put the link on for everyone to see. I'm just going to send you the link to the Instagram video here. And then if you're able to show it, then that's great. If not, then if you could just put it up there for everyone to see in the comments. So just let me know. Let me know if you can show it. But this is the article is about. Well, the article I should say is called "The Iranian Regime's Increased Focus on Black Americans." And the video that I just shared with our producer, I hope we can share it here in a minute, is a video of, he's a member of Iran's Supreme Council for Cultural Revolution, Hassan Rahimpour Azgadi. This video was from January 2020, just 4 months before George Floyd was killed and the resurgence of Black Lives Matter. Though you guys should be able to see that link there. You can click on it and watch it. I apologize. I meant to share it with you here, but I did put but you will be able to see, if you're not subscribed to our Substack, then you can subscribe now, ibsi.substack.com, and read the article. It highlights exactly what I'm talking about. The regime, the Ayatollah, the Iranian regime's focus on Black America. In the video itself, hold on a second, sorry. In the video itself, Azgadi, he talks about, he's giving a lecture, right? He's in a room full of other Iranians, part of the regime. He's giving a lecture about how Iran needs to subdue America using Black Americans and using the issues of race. One of the things he says, and I'm quoting him now, he says, "We have to make our presence felt in the conflict in America that involves Black people, that involves Blacks and people of color. There is fertile ground for this. With regard to the American people, let me tell you this. If their media fabric and oppressing structures loosen a little bit, America is the kind of country that will disintegrate quickly." Okay, so he's talking about, this is our strategy and this is what we need to do. Now, this is 4 months before the George Floyd killing and the riots that ensued. Okay. And one of the things that the Ayatollah did, if you guys remember, he tweeted during one of the riots that happened after 2020. He tweeted in support of Black Lives Matter and the riots that are going on across America. He said, "Love what you guys are doing. Keep it going." Now, hold on a minute. Hold on just a second. Why is Ayatollah Khamenei all the way in Iran tweeting his support for the riots in America? Let's look at what the Ayatollah Khamenei is. Well, he's dedicated to eradicating Israel and Jews around the world. The Islamic Republic of Iran is the largest state sponsor of terrorism in the world and on the African continent. That means when you hear stuff about Janjaweed or the Rapid Support Forces or Boko Haram or the Fulani Herdsmen or or Al-Shabaab. Those are terrorist groups that are funded by Iran. What Hamas did to Israel on October 7th, Hamas is also funded by Iran. So this guy, who's responsible for the deaths of millions across the African continent and the Middle East, is saying, we love what you're doing. Black Lives Matter, standing up for justice. You guys are doing great. See how it doesn't line up? It doesn't line up because he knows what he's trying to do. He's using the Black community and throwing fuel onto the fire because he knows that if that continues on, the US will implode. So you have to read this article, you guys. It just went out. The Iranian regime's increased focus on Black Americans. Again, it's on our Substack. Africa Israel Weekly is the name of our Substack. Or go to ibsi.substack.com and you can check it out. It is very pertinent, especially with what's going on right now, which is coincidentally one of the things that we addressed yesterday at the Federation of Northern New Jersey. We talked about why people use the Black voice, why there's so much pressure on Black pastors to say things that people are trying to get them to say, and why people do things like, we talked about the stat that went out a few months ago. 1,000 Black pastors, signed this thing calling for a ceasefire and are accusing Israel of all these things. And I said this before, and I'll say it again. Whenever we do our events with our pastors, particularly with our pastors, because we're focusing on pastors because this particular study that was done said 1,000 Black pastors, room full of pastors. We asked them, how many of you have heard of this statistic before? Hardly anybody raises their hands. A room full of Black pastors, all across it, from the East Coast to the West Coast. How many of you all heard of this study that 1,000 Black pastors signed this anti-Israel document? Maybe one person who's more in the political space, they raise it. Hardly anyone. Why? We tell them, because the study is not for you, it's for them. They want to use your voice. They want to take your voice and project it to everyone and say, look, everyone, this is what Black America thinks. And as long as you're not aware of what's going on, you're just going to keep on going about your merry way. Which is why sometimes when our Jewish friends ask us, why are Black people so anti-Semitic? We have to tell them, it's not. They're not. Black people are no more anti-Semitic in terms of in number than white people are. You just are getting that propaganda from people who know exactly what they're trying to do. That's why when Black Lives Matter took that position, that anti-Israel position in the very beginning when they first started, they didn't do that for Black people. They did it for everyone else. They wanted everyone else to think that they represented Black America. And a lot of people did think they represented Black America. They wanted the country to think they were the voice for Black America, period. Even though the platforms that they put out there were inconsistent with the majority of Black people. They wanted to defund the police, something that over 80% of Black people did not want to do. They want to dismantle the nuclear family, which is not even a conversation amongst Black people. That's not even a thing. They were against school choice, which if you look at what's been going on in the past decade right now, is that homeschooling specifically has skyrocketed in the Black community. But they wanted you to think that they spoke for all of us. And a lot of people thought so because they had almost $50 billion in corporate pledges. And we've talked about this before. Not only did they have that, but one of the founders, Patrisse Cullors, after they were under fire, Black Lives Matter was under fire for a while. They were being investigated by the IRS, saying there's tens of millions of dollars that have not been accounted for. What happened to it? Patrisse Cullors steps down, but right before she steps down, she transfers over $6 million to her spouse. Then she steps down with all that money. These people got mansions, they got cars, they live in like the nicest, just nicest, most plush neighborhoods in America, right? Same thing with BLM Canada. It was a game, but it was a game from the beginning. And the game was, let's pretend to be Black America and tell the world we want to destroy Israel. And it'll be more legitimate because the world listens to Black people. And AT&T and Pepsi and what else? A few other huge multi-billion-dollar companies backed them. That is why you had what you had with Black Lives Matter over the years. And so what we said was, you guys listen. I know that during that time, the voices seemed like the minority. The voices like ours and other people like Pastor Corey Brooks from Project Hood, um, voices like the NAACP chapter in Oakland, California. There are voices out there saying, hold up, time out. We don't want to defund the police. We actually need more police because crime is crazy. It is through the roof. Literally, children are being killed on purpose. I saw a video of this guy who used to be in a gang. He's an older gentleman, I think he's in his 50s, and he said, "Yeah, I was in a gang." He said, back then, even amongst the gangs, there were certain lines you didn't cross. If you had beef with someone, and let's say you were going to kill them, you were going to shoot him up. He said, if you saw that person with this child, if you saw that person with his mother, you would look and you would go, next time, I'm gonna get you next time. Ooh, why? Because your mom got nothing to do with it. Your mom probably doesn't want you to be in the gang in the first place. I'm not about to, no, I don't want that. I don't want that on my conscience. My beef is with you, not with your mother, not with your. And this man was saying, nowadays, he said, nowadays people will go out and shoot little 9-year-old kids on purpose because they know that they're the little sister of this guy that they don't like. So that's what's going on in Oakland, current still, right? On top of the poverty, I go to Oakland from time to time, either for music, for other work, and I mean, it even smells like the whole city when you go. I'm like, this is not the Oakland I grew up with. Things are terrible, and the community leaders there are saying, "Hello, excuse us, yeah, we don't want to defund the police." They were ostracized. They were called names, just like that troll who was commenting a few minutes ago on here on YouTube. Exactly that. They were called sellouts. They were called, oh, you don't speak, who are you guys? You guys are extremists and you guys are this and the other. Meanwhile, these were the people on the ground. These were the people on the ground saying, no, see, I work in this town. I actually see the dead bodies. I actually go to these funerals of these family members of kids who are 8 years old walking home from school, getting shot repeatedly on purpose by these grown men because they have a beef with someone else. All that kind of stuff. That's going on in Oakland. And they said, no, we don't want it. The community in Detroit, we don't want to fund the police. What are you talking about? Communities all over the country were like, that's not what we want. Some of them said, we actually need more police because statistics show simply having a police car parked on a street corner makes crime go down. If I'm going to rob a house and I go to that neighborhood and I see a police officer sitting there, I don't want this kind of smoke. I'm going to go to jail. He's right there. They're like, please, can we just have police officers stationed? Now, good policing, bad policing, all that stuff. See, that's a different discussion. We're willing to have a nuanced discussion about certain precincts, certain police officers, certain sheriffs, right? When you meet people in the community, they'll tell you that guy's cool, she's cool, this guy, I think he's racist, this guy is just a jerk. Watch out for whatever it is. But broad base, let's just defund, reallocate funds, and have less police officers. The only people who even pontificate that kind of stuff are people who don't live in those communities. The only people who sit down on 60 Minutes or CNN or on these highfalutin things and discuss the merits of taking funds away from the police and community policing and having less officers on the street because police officers, to some Black Americans are like slave owners. The only people actually bringing those things up are people who don't live in those communities. And I'm not talking about white people. I'm talking about people who don't live in those communities. People who might share the same skin as me, but we did not have the same childhood. People who might share the same skin as those people living in East Oakland and Oakland, they do not have the same childhood. Completely different realities. When we talked about Roland Fryer at Harvard with Claudine Gay and everything, he was like, yeah, she's Black, he was Black. He grew up in the projects. She grew up with a silver spoon in her mouth. That doesn't make her inherently a bad person, but she was heralded as a voice for Black America in Harvard, as a voice for Black people, even though her background is not shared by most of Black America. Again, that doesn't make her a bad person, but when you take her word as gospel simply because she is Black, that is racist. And then you throw him to the side because he's saying things that you don't like. But the thing is, he actually came from the communities that you all keep discussing. while you've never set foot in it. At that point, Claudine Gay might as well have been white. At this point, Patrisse Cullors might as well have been a blonde-haired, blue-eyed girl because she was detached from these are not her experiences. She grew up privileged. She's even more privileged now. She's among the rich. And what's happening with the BLM chapters all over the country? They never got any of that funding. Almost $50 billion in corporate pledges. BLM chapters all over the country didn't get anything. The parents of the deceased children didn't get anything. All these people, we and you guys have seen this by now. Now, after all this stuff has come out, we're saying, oh, what's going on? Why do Black people hate Israel? No, Black people don't hate Israel. What happened was some of you hopped on the BLM train and you thought that if you were just to acquiesce to them, then they'll acquiesce to you. The problem is BLM didn't run off the rails, you guys. And I wrote an article maybe a year ago called Black Lives Matter Isn't Broken. It's doing what it's supposed to be doing. From the beginning, the people at the top who formed Black Lives Matter had this goal in mind, that an anti-American, anti-Israel, anti-family, anti-God agenda from the start. They wrapped it in social justice and all this other flowery stuff. And a lot of us went, ooh, yeah, let's hop on that. Let's change our profiles to a black square. Let's give them all this time. Let's put it on the NBA courts and NFL football fields. And let's, let's give all this money to them. Then when they did all the free Palestine stuff, and then after October 7th, when the BLM chapter in Chicago posted the paraglider and said, we stand with Palestine, the paraglider, for those who don't know what I'm talking about, the paragliders, in October 7, 2023, when Hamas invaded Israel, there were paragliders, Palestinian paragliders, with AK-47s who were shooting into the Nova Festival, killed hundreds of people, and kidnapped others. Okay? So the day after that happened, or a few days after that happened, Black Lives Matter Chicago posted a graphic saying, we stand with Palestine, and it was a graphic of a paraglider. Everyone's clutching their pearls, and we were going, I don't know why your pearls being clutched. They've always been like this. Their goal was to do this. They positioned themselves and said, we speak for Black America, and you guys said, okay, we believe you. Other Black people said, no, they don't, and you said, I don't want to talk to you guys. And now we're here. So anyway, I went way off for a minute, but that is, so backing all the way up to the article, you guys have to check out the article because that's a larger thing. That's a tactic of Iran, is to throw fuel onto the fire and continue to ignite race relations here in the United States, because he sees that as one of the ways. The Ayatollah recognizes that Black people are the soul of the country for many different reasons. Not that other people aren't, and that this is not a color thing. This is a history thing, right? A people thing. Like our Jewish brothers and sisters, the fact all that we have gone through, right? Centuries of slavery, another century of Jim Crow segregation and lynchings, and still we're able to build Black Wall Street twice. Still we're able to, in some instances twice, I should say, still we're able to the whole Harlem Renaissance come out of us, still able to excel and achieve and push the needle forward in so many ways. That is a testament to God's goodness to us and our strength. So in a lot of ways, like I said, Black America is a big part of the soul of America, and people around the world see that, which is why our America's enemies try to tap into that. We don't know how strong and how powerful we actually are. Okay, so I want to take a quick break and show you a recap. Producer, if we have the recap video of Truth to Power Live, we're going to play that in just a moment. That is every Sunday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. Our CEO and founder has a radio show called Truth to Power Live. You can check it out, all streaming platforms. We're going to give you a little recap of what went on just yesterday. Check it out.
I wanted to share with you a clip from the article. Is entitled State Department Stands by Advisor Who Spoke at Pro-Hezbollah Rally Where Jews Were Told to Go Back to Poland. This is the Washington Free Beacon. I believe this article came out about 2 or 3 weeks ago. Dearborn, Michigan Mayor Abdullah Hammoud, a member of the State Department's Assembly of Local Leaders, spoke on September 25th at a Stand with Lebanon rally in Dearborn to decry U.S. support for Israel against Hezbollah fighters in Lebanon. Hammoud, who has emerged as a leading critic of Israel following October 7th, touted his support for the anti-Israel divestment movement. Elected Dearborn mayor in 2021, Hammoud was introduced as, quote, the greatest mayor in the United States by Arab-American activist Osama Siblani, whom the Harris campaign has met with to gain the support of Michigan's Muslim voters, hailed Hezbollah's Nasrallah during his speech as a hero and said of Israelis, "We will take you back to Poland." Clip number one from the interview with Abdullah Hammoud, because I want to talk to you about the propaganda.
Very fortunate to be joined today by Mayor Abdullah Hammoud, mayor of Dearborn, Michigan, which of course is a city that came in for a lot of attention this presidential election cycle. Great to see you again, Mayor.
Great to be with you.
Yeah, of course. So you decided ultimately, even though you're a Democrat, not to endorse in the race versus Kamala Harris versus Donald Trump. Why did you make that decision, and what do you make ultimately of the results in your city?
Ultimately, my decision not to endorse stemmed on an issue of policy. We wanted a presidential candidate who would distance themselves from Benjamin Netanyahu and the ongoing genocide that's not only now in Palestine, but expanding in Lebanon. I'm of Lebanese origin and descent, so is my wife of Lebanese and Palestinian descent. To date, almost every resident I know in this city has had a family member or loved one killed, injured, or displaced. And so when you see the election results, and I just put out my message earlier, I think the first thing to note is no votes are promised to any party or to any candidate. Votes must be earned, first and foremost, especially from a community that is suffering directly from a genocide.
In that 1.5 minute clip, he said genocide 2 or 3 times, or I think at least 2 times. And it's an 8-minute interview. He says genocide. I'm estimating about 8 or 9 times. Let's deal with the first things first. Whether in Gaza or whether it's Lebanon, civilian deaths, innocent deaths, which are, according to objective rubrics, are the least in this type of guerrilla warfare than any other nation. The IDF has the best track record in having to fight terrorists, coming back to the second, embedded in civilian populations. Hamas intentionally embeds itself in schools or near schools, near mosques, near churches, in hospitals. They do this on purpose so that as the IDF has to go and fight them, the IDF with precision as much as possible, and it does all these things already talked about. They send door knocks, they send text messages, they tell the civilian population, we are going to be coming in this area. And what Hamas does is careen them and make sure that they cannot leave. And the problem becomes for Israel, Hamas not only do they not care about the residents of Gaza, they want them killed in the battle so that they can say what this mayor just said: Israel is committing a genocide. Because I'm going to connect this to the other thing, in his claims of Israelis committing genocide in Gaza and in Lebanon, which is a lie, what he's not going to ever mention is Hezbollah, Hamas, the Islamic Republic of Iran, Islamic Jihad. Never. He's never going to mention that. Because what he wants everyone to believe is that the Israelis decided one day to march into Gaza and start killing Gazans, to march into Lebanon and start killing Lebanese. It's a lie, but it's a lie that keeps getting repeated over and over again on the left, and it's happening increasingly on the right. Well, here is conservative commentator Glenn Laurie and his cohort, John McWhorter.
I stress it's not just a book about Palestine. It's a book about writing.
No.
So there, I'm finished. No.
That writing with a capital W should include genuinely constructive engagement with the situation, which has both a present and a past, and via elision, the word Hamas never appearing, so many other things never mentioned.
Glenn Laurie, who calls himself a conservative, has been praising Ta-Nehisi Coates' book, which is slander against Israel. Though Glenn Laurie has lavished praise on Ta-Nehisi Coates and his book, called The Message, in which he slams Israel as committing genocide, as being an apartheid state, John McWhorter tells you all you need to know for that clip, that Ta-Nehisi Coates wrote an entire section of his book about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, or about what Israel's doing to Palestine, and never once mentioned Hamas. The same thing that I talked about with the mayor of Dearborn, the same thing that I talked about with the Muslim Brotherhood operatives. The way you do propaganda is either by straight up lying or by omitting, which he said by elision, by omission. He said he never mentioned the word Hamas or other things. He didn't give any context to what's happening in Gaza. He just condemned Israel as an apartheid state. It's lazy thinking. So somehow we need proof, receipts. We need to have deep discussion until the Jews come into the discussion. Then, whatever bad thing you said, it's got to be true because the Jews.
Truth to Power Live with Jimmy Study Washington.
So that is Truth to Power Live with Dumi Sani Washington every Sunday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. You can check it out. Sometimes it overlaps with what we're talking about. Other times he talks about other issues. It's not just about it. It's not just an Israel radio show. It's about all things that are going on. I want to piggyback on the very end. That notion of Jew hatred, what he's talking about, that sometimes otherwise very intelligent, very cogent people who are all about facts and figures and data, all that kind of, even the most stoic of people sometimes. Some of them, when it comes to issues of the Jews, issues related to Israel, all of a sudden that reasoning goes out the window. So absolutely, it was so mind-boggling for me to see Glenn Laurie praise Ta-Nehisi Coates' book, which employs the same shallow racist race baiting tactics that Ta-Nehisi Coates employs in anything else he talks about. Glenn Laurie has shot down Ta-Nehisi Coates in so many ways for so many years for doing the same stuff that he's doing right now, but to white people. But then he reads his book, which is all feeling. There's no facts, no figures, no numbers, there's no nuance, no nothing. And Glenn Laurie says, I think it's a fantastic book. He wrote a whole Substack column praising the book. It's a work of art. It's like, how? For some, there is that's something deeper that we can have a broader discussion about. I think it would be nice to have that discussion with our Speakers Bureau Chief Olga Mashoy Washington, with my wife, next week, because that is something that would be nice to kind of unpack a little bit, right? Both from a physical side and also a spiritual side. But yes, that is definitely something. Now, a couple more things I just want to address with you. So, as you know, we had the elections. Last week was our forum, and that was the day before elections. Wow, it's only been 6 days since the elections. And I mean, I don't know if you guys have been watching or following, but Donald Trump is our 47th president. He's president-elect, and he's been making some decisions about who to put in his cabinet, who to put in his office. He just recently picked Congresswoman Elise Stefanik as the United Nations ambassador, which, if you don't remember that name, if you remember Claudine Gay, remember Liz McGill, remember Sally Kornbluth, those three university presidents. Claudine Gay was the university president of Harvard, and then, of course, Liz McGill was University of Pennsylvania, and Sally Kornbluth was Massachusetts Institute of Technology. These three women were on trial. They were not on trial. They were at a hearing and being questioned by different congresspeople about the Jew hatred that was going on their campus. Especially at Harvard, they were chanting Intifada. These anti-Israel students were chanting for calling for genocide against Jewish students. And Elise Stefanik was she was grilling them the heart, asking them some very basic questions. Is it okay? Does it line up with Harvard University's policies for students to chant and call for genocide against another group of students? And remember the famous phrase that Claudine Gay kept repeating over and over again, but they all said it. It depends on the context. And Stefanik was like, okay, let me try to rephrase this. If a group of kids is marching down your campus, chanting death to the Jews, calling for an intifada, chanting from the river to the sea, and I'll be, oh, that's not genocide. It is. But even beyond that, actually chanting for death to the Jews, right? Is that allowed? Is that permitted on Harvard's campus? And they all kept saying, well, it depends on the context. It depends. And that's what Stephan was like, what context would make this okay? What context would make any group of kids on a campus calling for the genocide of a whole group of people okay? They wouldn't answer. So that famous kind of setting, and how clear she was as a congresswoman, grilling these women, these university professors. That's Elise Stefanik. She's been appointed, or she's been picked by President-elect Trump to be the United Nations ambassador. So ambassador to the UN. I mean, look, from what we've seen from her and other things, I think that's a great thing. So we will continue to see how things unfold there, but we definitely need somebody strong. And just like Nikki Haley was when she was there, we need someone who's able to stand up to these thugs in the UN and this voting bloc, this Soviet communist voting bloc of countries that not only hate Israel, but do not care, not even do not care, hate Africa, do not care about what's going on in the rest of the world. I said it before and I'll say it again. Kofi Annan, the late Kofi Annan, the former UN Secretary General, he was, at first he would believe, he put out statements about what's going on in Israel, because resolution after resolution would get passed about Israel committing genocide and all that stuff. And so he was concerned. But after a while, he was like, hold on a minute. And he said, there's so much of a focus on Israel, and there's zero focus on other parts of the country. Everyone else is like, it's like other countries don't exist. He said, we don't ever focus on other countries like Sudan, where they haven't been able to say a word. What he was talking about in Sudan was the genocide in Sudan, the slavery that's still going on in Sudan. We're good friends. We're partners with the African Jewish Alliance, and one of the speakers on the bureau is our good friend Simon Dang, who is a former slave from Sudan. He was taken as a slave at 9 years old for 2 years. Okay, that still happens in Sudan. There are millions of slaves across Africa, Libya, Nigeria, Mauritania, Sudan, Algeria, Democratic Republic of the Congo, other parts of the continent. And Kofi Annan was the late Secretary General Kofi Annan was like, why is everything about Israel? Why, whenever we come together, it's only resolutions against Israel? How come we haven't been focusing? What about these countries? Exactly. He noticed it way back then, and even before that, it was going on. So we need someone. We need a UN ambassador who will stand up to and call out the BS from the Islamists and the communists in the United Nations. So that's a good move. We say, yeah, great move, and we hope that she continues to stay strong in what she does. Okay, and then lastly, I want to address this in our last few minutes. There was a stat, and our Speakers Bureau Chief, Olga Washington, was sharing this with me, and we'll actually post about this soon and give you guys more links. But for many parents with kids in college, so with parents across the U.S., either kids who are about to go to college or kids in college, one of the deciding factors for them in this election was campus anti-Semitism. And that was a big thing for them, right? Is, will my Jewish child be safe on campus? And, in their estimation, they weren't going to have that kind of safety. Again, this is not an endorsement of any party, but I'm telling you that, like I said, the statistics, they didn't see any such thing in the Democratic Party. They're hoping they can have in the Republican Party. They didn't see such thing in the Democratic Party. As a matter of fact, with Columbia University, for those of us who know, the encampments that happened a few months ago all across the country, it started with Columbia University. These anti-Israel, pro-Palestinian protesters were setting up tents, blocking the quad, blocking entrances to buildings, not allowing Jews unless they pledged their allegiance and to them and denounced Zionism, denounced Israel. They wouldn't allow Jews to walk across campus. They wouldn't allow anyone. They were blocking people from freely traveling across campus. They were bullying. All that kind of stuff was going on. I actually was able to go to UCLA's campus and see it for myself one of the nights, because I happened to be out in California for a concert. And the night before the concert, I went with some friends to actually see what was going on. It was crazy. And every few minutes, every maybe 20 minutes or so, they would pick up the boundaries and they would move a little bit further out, put it down. So they were like taking more and more of campus over. That kind of started in Columbia University, and it spread out from there. One of the things that happened recently is that Chuck Schumer, the U.S. Senator Chuck Schumer from New York, he told the Jewish students who are experiencing this thing on campus, who are being bullied on Columbia's campus, he told them just to keep their heads down. That was his solution to what was going on. And then he told them universities' political problems are really only among Republicans. So he was telling them the only people who really have a problem with Columbia's administration and faculty are Republicans. You know, it's fine with us. There's not really much going on. Just keep your heads down and it'll blow over. That's what he said to the students. That's what Chuck Schumer said to the students at Columbia University. A lot of Jewish parents saw that and was like, okay, interesting. I don't think so. And he said, this is not a Democrat issue. This is a Republican issue. All right. Well, if the Democrat is saying that Republicans are more concerned about what's going on in Columbia than we are, I think I'm gonna vote Republican. So a lot more Jewish parents than usual voted Republican this year, because sometimes some of them for that alone. Chuck Schumer said, the Democrat said that this issue on college campuses is a Republican issue. It's not a Democrat issue. Well, thank you for doing their campaigning for them, because I was actually wondering how important it was to you, and you just told me that it wasn't. So I'm going to vote for them. Thank you for telling me that it's actually important to them. For some of those Jewish parents, it wasn't Donald Trump who said that what's going on campus is important. It was someone for some of them who used to vote Democrat, it was someone in their camp who said the Republicans care more about this. I went, oh, okay. I guess I'll vote for them. I mean, so that's what's happening. So that was a huge deciding factor. And so now these Jewish parents are hoping that with a majority House Representatives, majority Senate, which we just found out a few minutes ago about the House Representatives, that a Republican majority government could actually help do something on campuses. And one of those things, and we'll be talking more about that, is this. We've had these anti-Israel student groups on campus for a long time. Part of the problem is these groups should not be on campus. Their funding comes from foreign countries who hate America. Their funding comes from the Muslim Brotherhood. They get their same funding that Hamas gets. The same source of their funding is the same source of Hamas. This is nefarious. Someone asked yesterday at our event in New Jersey if we're going to do stuff on college campuses, or if we do. And I explained to them that we don't really do college events anymore. Sometimes we do if it's very specific, but the reason why we don't is because what we found is that it doesn't do anything, right? It doesn't actually move the needle. You have these very rabid anti-Israel groups on campus who are bullying, beating, and chanting stuff, shouting for genocide, who are being funded by terrorist groups. They should not be on campus. So the response for us, as we look at it, the response to put pro-Israel students on the campus only legitimizes them. These anti-Israel groups don't need to be on campus. They're not legitimate. Their funding doesn't come from a legitimate source. Their tactics and their goals they're anti-American. It's not right for them to occupy space on campus, especially when their money comes from Qatar and Iran. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. So that's one of the ways that needs to be combated, right? We can't just be doing pro-Israel events on campus. The first, we need to clean house and get those little terrorist groups out of there. And so we're hoping that with this, we'll see with this new administration, what's going to happen with college campuses across the country and how that's going to be dealt with, right? So thank you all. It's 9:01 here on the East Coast. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you guys have enjoyed this segment. You can visit our website again, ibsi.org. Go to ibsi.org/donate and give a donation to IPSI. We're coming toward the end of the year. You can give a tax-deductible donation. You guys, as the year is approaching the end, and you may be wondering how you can how you can give or what you want to do, even for tax purposes. I would ask you to consider please giving to IPSI. You can even go now. I think sometimes there's a QR code that pops up, but if you go to ibsi.org/donate, do it right now. Go to the website right now. And give to IPSI. We have a lot of events, even to end out the year. We have events ending the year and for 2025, and we cannot do this without your help. We need your help, and we want to say thank you for the support that you've given so far. All right. Thank you so much, you all. Thank you for tuning in. I see you in the comments over there. Pastor Matrilla Hall, shout out to you. I see you, Gary. I see you, Elizabeth. Yes, thank you for tuning in. We're streaming all over the place. Please share IPSI with your friends, with your neighbors, and reach out to us about doing events in your city. We would love to come meet you and continue this work of Black and Jewish and Africa-Israel solidarity. That's it for this evening. You guys have a wonderful night. Thank you.